had another change of heart and was falling apart a little bit about this, and I didn't quite know which way to go with it. So what I'm actually doing is I've put in a replacement transformer which has a proper HT winding on it. Unfortunately, it's not a centre tapped transformer, so the problem I've got is the fact that I can't actually put both wires straight to the rectifier valve and have one to ground, but I can do it by making a hybrid bridge rectifier. So what you've got here is I'm just trying to lay out the best way to do it. Got two diodes to make half the bridge, and then the two diodes that are on this pin and this pin will be going to the two diodes in the rectifier valve, the 6x5. You're still going to have your B plus coming out on pin 8 here, which is this wire, which will then go to the choke, into the choke down here, out of the choke. Between here and ground there will be a couple of 8 microfarad capacitors which effectively replace this capacitor here, and that's the way I'm going at the moment. I'm just sort of, I've put in the tag strip, obviously there's nothing else been soldered, all of these are loose. These two wires here are the heater, and this pair of wires here is the AC input to this transformer. Now, although I haven't got a grommet, what I've done is I've actually sleeved both sets of wires coming through the hole, just to provide that little bit extra strength and that little bit of abrasion resistance. And it's just slightly better. Well, it's a great deal more. It's double as good as it was before. It also means that this cap stays in position, and from the outside the transformer doesn't look like it doesn't belong. I was quite lucky. I only had to extend this hole by about 1.5 millimeters, sort of that way. So it's pretty much using the original holes. At this point I've not had to drill any more holes in the chassis. So at the moment I'm just sort of looking at which is the best way to lay everything out. Obviously, you know, I can't use this particular tag or that particular tag for anything with voltage on it because they touch the chassis, even though they're not screwed down. They do touch. This one is obviously an earth and this is an earth, so one side of the AC is going to ground for the heaters, as it does in the rest of the set. The other one will go to the heater wire here, which will then give the 6 volts or 6.3 volts through the rest of the heater chain. It also keeps the slow startup of the valves rather than having the high surge initially, which a pure silicon rectifier would do. So it's just going to be a little bit kinder to the valves, having the rectifier doing the slow warm-up and then putting the HT gradually onto the rest of the tubes. So let me do some more thinking, grab some capacitors, and I can lay some more bits out. See you very soon. Okay, welcome back, and here we are. I'm just in the process of soldering some of these wires in where they should be. I've already done the ground side of the diodes and the ground of the heaters. They're all connected to the same point. I'm just doing the other side of the heater, which I've just replaced here. I'm not happy with the way that's gone. I'm going to put that under and through, just because of the sake of neatness, like that. I haven't decided whether I'm going to run this B plus over the top or under the bottom at this point yet, but let's just push that through and get that in so that stays there. Give the soldering iron a quick heat up, and let's just make sure that wire takes the solder and these tags take the solder. Just get enough on there to get both. I really should be using thicker solder than this, but I can't be bothered to reach over and get to the reel. So what we'll do now is we'll just let that cool down a second and just make sure that both wires are solid in there. Yep. And I'm just going to take off the top there, and this is where wearing glasses helps. Just trim off those there, so that's solid in there, that's solid in there. Okay, and now I'm going to do the first of the hot side of the diodes, and I've already tinned one piece of wire for there, so that's going to go through the hole. If I can get my fingers out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm actually going to put it through from the same side like that, so that they all come through. I'm also going to bend that one up the same as the incoming HT wire here. The diode is already slightly bent up, but I want to keep the three ends fairly separate so that I can see that the solder's gone onto them properly. And a quick trick, if you need to get thicker solder, is to literally just fold it over and twist it in half. So let's just start that off. Right, there we go. And let's just make sure the diode gets it as well. Yep. And that's coated all of them and not melted any of the covering, which is also a good thing. So that's ready to go off now to the HT side of the rectifier valve. We'll just do this side as well, and this one I'm going to go in from this side because I've got the diode coming through from there. So again, I'm just going to first of all, I'm going to bring the end of that wire up from the transformer like that. Just bend it up a little bit, come on, using my finger like that. Then I'm going to put a little bend in that like that, so that when it goes in it will hook up right like that, so that then again the three ends I can see on that side. So that's where's the end of the solder. It should still be have enough folded over and round itself. So again, a quick dib dab, and let's start by tinning the heavier. That's it, putting the heat on the diode lead, and then just pushing enough solder in quickly so that they're all covered and they're all in solidly. And then what I'll do is I will trim first of all the diode lead that's sticking out at the back here, and then I shall just make sure that those are in. Yeah, start with the diode lead and then this other HT lead here, one that's going to go off to the other side of the rectifier like that. So that keeps everything neat and tidy there. Now I've got the HT to go into the capacitor and out of the capacitor yet to do, and let me just bend that wire around so that it's a little bit more tidy, and I can bring that up through there, Now obviously this one I'm going to do from this side and have it coming through that way, but I don't really want to take too much off this cable from where it was cut originally when I chopped the capacitor out. So let's just cut this off now. It's quite amazing to see that originally this was yellow cloth covered, so I can actually just push it back, but the rubber on the outside, as you see, it's just coming off there. So yeah, do I want to use it or shall I clean it up first? Oh, I don't know. Decisions. Do I take the bit of wire off and clean it up? Yeah, I think I will. I'll be back once I've cleaned it up. And welcome back. And here we are. I'm just finishing off the attachment to the rectifier valve. Now this is actually the ground of the heaters, which originally went to... Well, that doesn't look like a very good joint. That looks like a much... No, that doesn't look like a very good joint at all. That looks like a better joint. Is it sticking? Come on, flow. That's better. Yeah, originally this ground for the heaters went off to a point on the chassis right behind the choke, which is, you know, absolutely miles away from where the actual ground could be. So what I've done is I've removed the sleeving, and all this is actually tin copper wire, so I'm quite happy to snip that off, and I'm going to measure the length that I need. I only need about that much. Slide that over the end like that, and then let's just feed that to the ground point here. Let's just take off some of that excess. And I'm not sure that I'm going to get it through the hole with all the other wires there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wrap it around the diode leg so that it's got a mechanical connection like that, and hopefully it won't give me too much problem trying to put some solder on it, because, you know, this looks, as far as I can tell, like the original cable. Come on, start to go. Yeah, there we go. No, that's a bit of lead. Come on, start to take. What I don't want to do is put so much heat on it. There we go. That's flowed around the whole lot. You know, this is incredibly hard to do when people are watching. When nobody's watching, you can do this really easily straight away. But let's turn that round and just nip that off there. And all that leaves then is these two wires to pins 3 and 5, which are the inputs to the rectifier tube. So that's where I want it. Cut that off there, and everybody will now say, you shouldn't do that with a pair of cutters. Well, you know, sorry, but I do. Been doing it a lot of years, and I know I'm a naughty boy and I shouldn't, but yes, hey ho. I suppose we all do things we shouldn't. Just tin it before it goes through the hole. That's it. Give the soldering iron another dab, put it away, and get the lead and fit it through the socket like that. And what what I'll do before I put it all the way through and solder it is I'll just put a bend in there like that to give me a little bit of a mechanical support, and then clamp it down so that when we solder it, it stays nice and level in the socket. So let's just heat the socket, then add the solder and make that go through. There we go, and then we have a nice clean joint. Man, right, so let's just lay the wire out so that it's not obstructed by anything, and we'll do the same with this side. Let's just put the bend in it if I haven't tinned it too much. There we go. So 3 and 5. So this is actually converting this radio from half wave to full wave rectification. Originally these two pins were just wired together, so each diode was getting half the voltage, half the current, so it could cope with the full load. This way, as a bridge rectifier, it's still now swinging either side, so it is giving, you know, the average current that it should be. So let me just stick this over here, just electric glue that one in, and that is the power supply. Pretty much complete. Now this wire here is the one that goes off to the output transformer, and obviously that will be the next stage that gets worked on there. This is from the output transformer to the next stages. Here are the actual anode resistors for the next couple of valves, but I'm going to go through the circuit from the schematic, and in some of the parts of the lost footage, well, they're not lost, but footage I've decided to scrap, you'll find that I have actually tested these component values, and some are going and some are staying, and it's a case of I have to decide which way I'm going to go. Am I going to try and put old stock resistors in, or am I just going to go in and put new resistors in right the way through the set? And maybe I'll be doing the same with the capacitors. Some people might say, you know, that's heresy, you shouldn't be doing that, but realistically, you're not going to see that side of the radio. You're not going to see this bit of the radio when it's finished. All you're going to see is the top part of the chassis, which is going to look fairly original, apart from being a bit shinier and a bit cleaner. So, you know, in one way, it's maybe the wrong thing to do for the radio, but in another way, it means this set will be a working set as it should be, rather than one that, you know, may or may not need repair again. You know, certainly looking at the state of this capacitor here, that's got to come out anyway. That one's coming out, they're coming out. As I've said in the past, all these waxes and electrolytics are coming out. In doing this pin, I've actually removed this dublia, which first of all I've got to test and see if it's within spec, and then actually see if it's actually mentioned on the diagram, because if it's not in the circuit diagram, I'd have to look for a reason as to why it was in there in the first place. Now I can probably see, being a half-wave rectifier and being mounted in that position there, it was used to smooth out the supply going into the rectifier, but realistically I can't see it being needed at this point with a full wave rectifier. On the half wave, yes, it would need to to cope with more ripple, but now we've got a full wave rectifier in, and we're going straight from the HT through these 2 capacitors, which are 10s, as you notice, not 8s, because when I looked in my box, that's what I had. I don't think the tube's going to complain too much about 2 microfarads. The next one's up, the 16s, might have been a little bit heavy for it, but we shall see. The other thing that you might notice is I've actually left these 3 blank, and there's a reason for that. The mains cable comes in here, and what I'm going to do is the mains cable will come through and we'll go live, neutral and earth. The earth will get its direct chassis connection. The live and neutral will go here before I can use ordinary, normal modern flex to go to the replacement on-off switch, rather than keeping the highly expensive cloth-covered antique looking mains cord going all the way through and wasting half of it, because at stupid money per meter you tend not to want to use too much of it. So that's the reason for these end ones. Another thing to note is that these are spaced 5mm apart, and according to the CE specifications, that is actually the required spacing in air for 250 volts RMS at AC. So I'm not worried that I'm going to get flashover between these 2, not unless the radio's very, very damp, and if it is, then I'm going to want to know why my house is flooded. So that's the reason for those 3 being blank where they are. And as I say, this end one will be the earth because it's a direct chassis connection. Apart from that, I think, what's the time, 2:15 in the morning. I think I might leave it there for now and carry on with this maybe tomorrow, and maybe do a little bit more. Oh, before I go, I will actually take those 2 bits of capacitor lead off. So there we go. We've created a new power supply for this thing, hopefully one that's better than it was. Then we're going to start working our way through and going through it bit by bit. Obviously, I'm going to follow the HT lead first. I'm going to put that in. But as I say, we'll do that another time. I'm getting a little bit tired. It's been one of those days. So I wish you all good night, good morning, God bless wherever you are, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.